District of Conservation is sponsored by the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, better known as CFACT. To learn more about our sponsor, head over to cfact.org. Thanks for listening to the program.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to District of Conservation. I'm your host, Gabriella Hoffman. This podcast offers a sober examination into all things hunting, fishing, shooting sports, energy, environment, and the public policy surrounding it. And this podcast also specializes in original interviews that you won't hear elsewhere. Here's what I have for you today. I went public land hunting for cherry blossoms and tulips. Nothing was physically harmed, and I'm going to talk about cherry blossom etiquette in this episode. If you enjoy cherry blossoms, they're managed if you go to visit the Tidal Basin by the Dept of Interior, which oversees the National Park Service, which oversees the National Mall, under which these cherry blossoms are governed. So there is a public land connection to the cherry blossoms. 1 million people are expected to visit our region, our metro region, amidst the Cherry Blossom Festival. We had just hit peak today, March 31st, peak cherry blossom bloom. We have some storm weather anticipated for this evening, so go and see the cherry blossoms before the storm hits or before the end of peak bloom. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. It had been 5 years, I think, since I last did cherry blossom scouting. I woke up super early. This is not a complaint. This is just an observation of how popular this activity has gotten. I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning, maybe a little bit earlier, yesterday, to go in anticipation of finding parking, thinking nobody would be there. Boy, was I mistaken. All the parking lots immediately close to the Tidal Basin, George Mason, Marker, FDR Memorial, all full, overpacked. I looked to go at the East Potomac Golf Course section, all that side parking, free side parking, totally filled up. So my next option, best option, where I had to pay money, unfortunately, was to park at the wharf, where there was nobody parked. And I think a lot of these people are tourists visiting from out of town. So being an insider in DC, I knew where to go. That was somewhat within walking distance, close to the Thomas Jefferson Memorial, but safe enough to park for long periods of time, except to the detriment of my bank account. But it's okay. It's like 30-something bucks, whatever. The cherry blossoms were beckoning, and they are beautiful. I saw them flying back from San Francisco overhead as I was landing from my flight from San Francisco back to DC last week. They looked beautiful from the sky. Of course, they're gorgeous in person, and it's no wonder why people from all over the world, not just across the country or the DMV, flock to our region, to our metro area, the nation's capital. It's the beginning of tourism season, to go see the cherry blossoms. And then within a few weeks, the tourists start to pour in. But this is one of the first events, if you've lived here for as long as I have, this is one of the first early indicators of tourist season. We get a little bit of a break, and then once the Memorial Day rush hits, we get to see tourists, and a lot of people enjoy public lands, all managed under the National Mall, under National Park Service, again, of which the Tidal Basin is. We didn't get a sunrise. Unfortunately, it was very overcast in the morning, and then the sun eventually peered through and made its debut. Some friends of mine that went today were lucky to be afforded a beautiful sunrise to complement the cherry blossoms. It's really magnificent when you have both of those facets together. The sunrise contrasted with the cherry blossoms, it makes for great pictures. So especially on the last day of peak bloom, very jealous of one of my friends who's a Fox News anchor that he got to see that. And I commented on his pictures to compliment how great of a shot he took and to have all those confluences of good factors come together. And I, of course, am for public lands. I want people to access public lands, but I have to kind of draw attention to something that I saw. And this is not to be a nitpicker or a Karen or someone who is bothered by people interacting with things. And this is not a stab at people visiting the Tidal Basin. I want visitors to come here because it means more tourism dollars. People experiencing beautiful things like sakura, cherry blossoms on public lands makes you appreciate how these lands are managed, that these are available to the public to admire and enjoy. But a perennial problem, something that happens all the time, and that there are signs and markers for, is to be like a good steward of cherry blossoms. You don't need the government to tell you to be a good steward, it's just common sense. But I saw a lot of people touching and shaking the cherry blossom branches, picking some petals, removing some things. I think my friends and I saw a couple people like break off branches of these over 100-year-old, century-old cherry blossoms. And I want to read for you also the story too when I finish making this point about etiquette with cherry blossoms, because I think the backstory is super unique. But this all ties into, again, Department of Interior, National Park Service, public lands. We want people to come here, and you have to have some basic decorum and common sense when you're handling these ancient trees. So what I do anytime I photograph near cherry blossoms, I do not get in close proximity. You can frame a shot and situate yourself in a position where you're not touching the branches, you're not invading into the space of the cherry blossoms themselves. You're being respectful, especially of your surroundings and other people who are trying to admire, and you're making sure you're not falling into the tidal basin because it's still very polluted. And if you didn't know, because it takes getting your fingers burned, a couple people have faced some penalties for defacing, touching, deliberately or not deliberately, cherry blossoms. And I want to read for you what this means and why you need to be careful if you go to the tidal basin. You think you could touch something, you think you have the right to touch something, you don't. Anytime you visit a national park, there are signs everywhere, or National Park Service lands, of which the National Mall is managed under. Even though it's not exactly a national park, it's a National Park Service property, of which there are over 400, but it's not a national park. But the rules still apply in terms of not touching trees, artifacts, very sensitive items. It's just common sense, and it's just a known rule that you don't. Because you do, it can reduce the quality of things. You don't want to damage something. You're supposed to leave no trace. You're supposed to leave a place, public lands, even something as trafficked and visited as much as cherry blossoms are. You need to leave no trace. You can't deface things. You have to have some respect for nature. And the same rule applies to even urban parks, such as the National Mall. There is a U.S. code, and again, I'm a conservative, limited government person. I'm not stickler about the rules, but there are penalties in place if you do deface public property such as cherry blossoms. And you need to be aware of this. Like, even an innocent touching of trees can get you in a load of trouble. You don't want to fall into this. You want to be respectful, and you don't want to lose your privileges where you would be forbidden from going to national parks because people may unintentionally or carelessly or, innocently touch something, and you lose those privileges. And you don't want to lose the privilege to go to public lands, right? So here's a special reminder of why you don't want to touch the trees and the penalties that can be incurred. According to the U.S. Code as it relates to the National Park Service, let me read it for you all. Okay, this is from Cornell Law School because they have a great breakdown. So it's 18 U.S. Code 1865, Section 3, as it relates to offenses relating to structures and vegetation. A person that willfully destroys, mutilates, defaces, injures, or removes any monument, statue, marker, guidepost, or other structure, or that willfully destroys, cuts, breaks, injures, or removes any tree, shrub, or plant within a national military park shall be imprisoned no less than 15 days or more than a year. Fined under this title, but not less than $10 for each monument, statue, marker, guidepost, or other structure, tree, shrub, plant, destroyed, faced, removed, or both. That should also encompass National Park Service lands, not just military parks, but that's the general code that they refer to. And you can find all of this at the Trust for the National Mall, again, which is governed by the National Park Service. So they have signs and markers that tell you explicitly, please do not touch the trees, be respectful, take your photos, but don't be a jerk and don't shake the trees and don't break branches. It's just common sense. Again, this is found and kind of known at every national park you visit or any public lands, BLM lands, Fish and Wildlife Service lands, Forest Service. They tell you don't touch anything. Just listen. You don't want to get into trouble and lose your privileges to go on public lands. That would be horrible to do that. And one little mistake can cost you a lot. So I hope that tourists come to this area and even local people, just be respectful. Know what the lay of the land is. Don't touch the cherry blossoms because you find out the hard way with the penalty and it's not fun. And then if too many people are doing this egregious tampering, touching, defacing, they could shut off opportunities for us to actually see this and enjoy this. Wouldn't that be a travesty? So just practice common sense, leave no trace, don't harm the cherry blossoms. And I want to explain why historically this matters. According to the National Mall, again, which is managed by the National Park Service, why is this great springtime tradition such a draw for people? Why do people flock here from all over the world? According to the National Park Service, specifically the National Mall, These cherry blossoms were gifted to us in 1912 by Japan as a gesture of friendship. And there are, I think, over 500 cherry blossom trees that surround the tidal basin, that envelop and surround the tidal basin. And it's beautiful when they're in full bloom. You can, like I said, you can see it from overhead when you're flying into Reagan National Airport, and they just stick out. You can't miss them. They're gorgeous. If you have allergies, you take some allergy medicine to come see them if you're sensitive to flowers or trees. But they are beautiful, as everyone shows. I posted some pictures on social media. I have a couple more pictures to share of my time admiring the cherry blossoms. Again, I hadn't done this since I think before COVID, and waking up early, even dealing with the traffic problems and the crowdedness, I still love and live for this kind of activity. I love partaking and feeling like a tourist again, even though I've spent over a decade in the Beltway now. It's a beautiful tradition. You get your steps in, you can have a healthy walk, you can see your friends, you can run into people you know, you can admire many other facets. And like I said, this is the beginning or the start of spring season in DC. It's been really lovely, mild winter, and I expect spring to be wonderful. Right now we're having 80 some odd degree weather. It's perfect. I encourage you to come to Washington, DC, come to our nation's capital. It's getting safer. If you're worried about the crime and traffic and whatnot, traffic is going to be more because there are more federal workers back in working in DC. But the cherry blossoms, if you've never seen them, come one springtime, track when they're in peak bloom. They've been happening, peak bloom has been occurring a little bit earlier than in recent years. It usually is around early to mid-April. They've been popping up as recent as late March, mid-March. So track the cherry blossom watch if you're planning an excursion here, and you won't regret it. Obviously, wake up really early. That's a good pointer. Have comfortable shoes. You can have some provisions. And again, just remember, you can snap all the cherry blossom pictures you want. Take a selfie, get group photos, but be very respectful. Just don't touch them. You can be close to them, just be practicing of caution. Don't touch them, because if someone catches you doing it, they could film you on social media, ostracize you, you'll get penalties. The government agencies, especially their social media, they do track. If you're posting cherry blossoms, that you're touching stuff, they can get word of it. They are just very sophisticated. I'm not saying, surveillance is good, but particularly about public lands, wildlife, natural resources, they are watching people. And it's actually good, because if someone is committing an infraction, they're poaching or harming natural resources or wildlife, people need to be aware. And so social media has many downsides, but it can actually capture and identify perpetrators of crimes, even petty unintentional crimes like this, of defacing natural resources, wildlife, trees, etc. So don't ruin the cherry blossom experience for others, and don't engage in very bad behavior here, because we all love cherry blossoms. We want the tradition to continue. We want the public to admire them. But you have to practice good stewardship behavior. Have you seen the cherry blossoms? Do you plan to visit? I would love to hear your feedback. I know this rant may sound very Karen-like or nagging, but it's just a simple common sense request. Public lands are supposed to be for the betterment and enjoyment of all. And when people engage in bad behavior, we can't enjoy it, and it's not as fun. So that's just a little PSA I have, but I love the cherry blossom season. I think it's a wonderful activity for this area. It really makes the city shine, and it's a great time, like I said, for family, friends, significant others, whatever occasion you're going to come to DC for. It's great to see the cherry blossoms, stop and smell the cherry blossoms, make a trip. It's worth it. If you enjoyed this installment of District of Conservation, I would love to know your feedback. Send it my way. Please be sure to leave us reviews on Apple, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are played, and also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to never miss a beat nor a guest announcement. Thanks so much for listening to District of Conservation. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please share the podcast to those who may be interested in learning more about these critical natural resources, environment, energy issues.